The utility worker. If you ever find a small white X drawn in chalk near your back door, do not go inside. Do not call your parents. Call the police immediately. I didn't know what that mark meant until a man in a high-visibility vest unlocked my door while I was standing 5 feet away. This happened 3 years ago in rural Ohio, where our house sits hidden behind a mile of thick cornfields. I was 13, home alone, having faked a stomachache to skip school. I felt like the king of the world until I saw the movement in the driveway. A white van rolled to a stop. No radio music, no engine rumble, just silence. A man stepped out. He looked perfect. Yellow safety vest, hard hat, clipboard. He looked like every utility worker you've ever ignored, but then he broke the rules. He didn't walk to the front door. He didn't ring the doorbell. He moved with a strange, focused speed around the side of the house, directly toward the backyard where the street view is blocked. I waited for a knock. 5 minutes passed. 10. The house was dead silent. A cold signal fired down my spine. The biology of survival took over. I dropped to the floor and crawled across the carpet to the kitchen, keeping below the window line. I reached the sliding glass door and peeked through the tiniest slit in the vertical blinds. My breath stuck in my throat. He wasn't checking the gas meter. He was standing on the patio mat, his face pressed hard against the glass, hands cupped around his eyes. He wasn't working. He was scanning the living room. He was hunting for motion. I froze. Then, he reached into his tool belt. I prayed for a meter reader. Instead, he pulled out a thin silver metal pistol. Click. The sound was deafening in the quiet kitchen. It wasn't a firearm, it was a mechanical lockpick gun. I watched in horror as the latch on the inside of the door, the one meant to keep me safe, slowly began to rotate to the left. He wasn't breaking in. He was letting himself in. I grabbed a steak knife from the drying rack, my hand shaking so violently I almost dropped it. The lock finished turning, the handle depressed, the door slid open an inch. The cold November air hit my face. Suddenly, chaos. The neighbor's German shepherd, an acre away, had spotted him. The dog went berserk, throwing itself against the fence. The man froze. He didn't look at the dog. He turned his head and looked directly at the slit in the blinds where I was hiding. He couldn't have seen me in the dark kitchen, but he stared right into my eyes. And then, he smiled. It was a tight, calm, terrifying smile. He let go of the door handle. He put the tool back in his belt, adjusted his hard hat, and walked calmly back to his van like he had just finished a routine inspection. I called the police the second his taillights disappeared. They took a report, but there wasn't much they could do. Before the officer left, though, he called me out to the back patio. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the bricks right under the door handle. There was a small X drawn in white chalk. The officer told me that fake workers use it to mark houses for other crews. It means easy target. I called the utility companies the next day. No one had been scheduled. The vest was a costume. The clipboard was a prop. He wasn't a worker, he was a scout, and he had marked my house for next time.
The wrong address. I thought the man standing on my porch was just a confused delivery driver. I was wrong. He wasn't looking for the right address. He was looking for me. And the scariest part wasn't that he tried to break in. It was that he had a key that worked perfectly. I was 19, living in a rented duplex in Austin. My boyfriend worked nights, so from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I was the only one home. It started on a Tuesday night. I was craving food, so I ordered delivery. 20 minutes later, headlights flashed across the living room window. I peeked through the blinds. An old, rusted-out sedan sat at the curb with its lights killed. A man got out. He didn't look like a delivery driver. He walked up the driveway, set a brown paper bag on the porch, and walked away without ringing the bell. I waited until the car sputtered off before opening the door. I grabbed the bag. It felt light, too light for food. I opened it. Inside, there were no tacos. There was a plastic baby doll. Its hair had been hacked off with scissors, and its eyes had been painted over with thick black nail polish. I dropped the bag. My boyfriend told me it was probably just neighborhood kids playing a prank. I wanted to believe him. But the next night, the prank turned into a threat. I heard the mail slot clatter. I walked into the hallway and saw a piece of lined notebook paper lying on the doormat. I picked it up. The handwriting was shaky, jagged, like someone writing with their left hand. It read, "I like the red shirt you wore today. It fits you better than the blue one." My breath hitched. I had worn a red shirt that morning. I had changed into a blue one after lunch, inside my bedroom with the blinds drawn. This person hadn't just seen me through a window. They had been watching me inside the house. That night, around 3 a.m., I was sitting on the couch with a baseball bat across my lap, staring at the front door. The house was dead silent. Then, I heard it. Jingle, jingle. It was the sound of keys. Not keys outside. Keys sliding into the lock. I stared at the deadbolt. I knew I had locked it. But as I watched, the little metal thumb turn began to slowly rotate to the left. Click. The lock disengaged. The handle turned. I screamed, "I have a gun! Get away!" I threw my entire body weight against the door just as it popped open. The security chain caught it, stopping it with a violent jerk. Through the 3-inch gap, I saw him. He wasn't wearing a mask. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a dad. He was maybe 50, wearing a polo shirt, looking completely calm. He smiled at me through the crack in the door. He didn't try to force his way in. He just whispered, his voice smooth and polite. "I just need to check the smoke detectors. It's mandatory." I slammed the door shut, threw the deadbolt, and pushed a heavy oak bookshelf in front of it. I sat there screaming until the police arrived. They caught him a week later. It turns out he wasn't a random stalker. He was the landlord's estranged son. He had been evicted years ago, but he had kept a copy of the master key. But that wasn't the worst part. When the police searched the house, they found a loose panel in the ceiling of my bedroom closet. Inside the attic crawl space, they found a sleeping bag, empty food wrappers, and a small hole drilled through the drywall. He hadn't just been watching from the street. The hole looked directly down into my shower. He hadn't just been watching me change clothes. He had been sleeping 10 feet above my head every single night, waiting for the right moment to come downstairs and check the smoke detectors.
The Fabric Men. The police report said Jamie and his roommate ran away, but that's impossible. It was 10 degrees below zero, and their boots were still by the door. They didn't leave the room. Something else entered it, and the only evidence left behind was a cheap plastic snow globe sitting on the nightstand. Jamie was 8 years old when he was sent to St. Joseph's Home for Boys. It was a bleak, sterile building surrounded by high fences and dead winter woods. Jamie was an outcast. His only friend was his roommate Bradley, a quiet kid with thick glasses who slept in the bed next to him. One night, Jamie found something under his bed, a snow globe. It wasn't his. Inside, a tiny plastic house sat in a blizzard of white glitter. But when he shook it, the snow didn't settle. It kept swirling, faster and faster, like a storm trapped in glass. He put it on the nightstand and went to sleep. He woke up at 3 a.m. The room was freezing. Jamie looked over at Bradley's bed. The lamp was on. The sheets were pulled back, but Bradley was gone. "Bradley," Jamie whispered. Silence. The door to the hallway was shut. The window was locked tight. It was like the boy had just ceased to exist. Then, the heavy oak door groaned. It didn't open like a door. It bowed inward, as if something massive was pushing against it. The latch snapped. The door swung open. They didn't walk in. They shuffled. 6 figures entered the room. They were huge, 7 feet tall and impossibly broad. They had no faces, no skin. They were heaps of heavy, moth-eaten wool, layers of red, brown, and gray blankets, smelling of old dust, mildew, and stale attic air. Jamie scrambled back against his headboard, his heart hammering against his ribs. He tried to scream, but the air felt thick, heavy. The brown entity moved first. It didn't have hands. It had massive, heavy sleeves. It lunged. It wasn't an attack. It was an engulfment. The heavy wool pinned Jamie's arms to his sides. He couldn't breathe. The weight was crushing, dry, and hot. It felt like being buried alive in a laundry chute. Then the largest entity entered, the black one. It stood at the foot of the bed. It didn't have a face, just a hollow, dark opening where a hood should be. It didn't speak with a mouth. Jamie felt the voice vibrate in his own chest, a deep baritone hum that rattled his teeth. "You are cold, child. Let us keep you warm forever." The room began to dissolve. The white walls of the orphanage turned soft, morphing into layers of thick, suffocating quilts. The floor opened up, not into a basement, but into a pit of writhing fabric vines. Jamie looked down into the pit. He saw Bradley. The boy with glasses was wrapped tight like a mummy, his eyes wide and frozen, sinking silently into the depths of the bedding. Jamie felt the fabric vines wrap around his ankles, then his waist, then his throat. They were dry and scratchy. They pulled him down into the darkness. The next morning, the nuns opened the door to room 302 for roll call. The room was empty. The beds were perfectly made. Jamie Turner and Bradley Ewing were never seen again. No footprints led out into the snow. No locks were broken. The police took the snow globe into evidence. It sat in a box for 20 years. But recently, a cold case detective looked closely at the file photo of that globe. He noticed something the original officers missed. Buried in the fake plastic snow, there are two tiny figures. One is wearing glasses, and the other is wearing green dinosaur pajamas. And if you use a magnifying glass, you can see that their hands are pressed against the glass, screaming to get out.
The Spider Woman. I am writing this from a court-ordered psychiatric facility. The doctors tell me it was a psychotic break. They tell me the creature wasn't real, but they can't explain the sound. If monsters aren't real, why can I still hear its legs clicking against the metal ventilation ducts above my bed? It happened the summer before my senior year. I had just undergone major reconstructive surgery on my knee. My leg was in a full cast, and I was prescribed a heavy dose of high-grade painkillers to manage the agony. My mom had to leave for a business trip, so she set me up on the living room couch with water, snacks, and my pills. She told me to just rest. By 10:00 p.m., the pain was throbbing like a heartbeat in my leg. I swallowed 2 more pills and drifted into a heavy chemical sleep. I woke up around 2:00 a.m. The room was pitch black, lit only by the red standby light of the TV. I tried to sit up, but I couldn't. My body felt like lead. The drugs had paralyzed me. Then I heard it. Click, drag, click, drag. A wet, rhythmic sound coming from the hallway. I strained my eyes in the darkness. Something was moving on the floor. A shape emerged from the shadows. It was low to the ground. It had too many limbs. Long, pale, twisted arms and legs jutting out at impossible angles. It was crawling toward me, dragging its belly across the carpet. It looked like a woman, but broken. Her head hung loosely, swinging side to side. Her eyes were gone, replaced by clusters of glistening black orbs. She stopped right next to the couch. I wanted to scream, but my throat was frozen. A thick, black liquid drooled from her mouth. It landed on my hand. It was hot. It smelled like copper. The creature hissed, a distorted radiostatic sound. She raised a twisted claw toward my face. The terror broke my paralysis. Adrenaline flooded my system. I threw myself off the couch, ignoring the screaming pain in my knee. I grabbed the heavy brass fireplace poker my mom kept on the hearth. The creature lunged. I swung. I heard a sickening crack. She screeched, a high, piercing wail. She fell to the floor. I didn't stop. I was fueled by pure, primal survival instinct. I swung the heavy brass poker again, and again, and again. I watched the black liquid spray across the carpet, covering the walls, covering me. I kept hitting until the creature stopped moving, until the screeching stopped, until I was standing over a pile of broken limbs, panting, covered in the black slime. Then the exhaustion took me. I passed out on top of the body. I woke up to the sound of beeping. I wasn't in my living room. I was in a hospital bed. My hands were cuffed to the rails. A detective was sitting in the chair next to me. He looked tired. He looked sick. "Did you find it?" I croaked, my throat dry as sand. "Did you kill the spider thing? The detective didn't say a word. He just opened a manila folder and placed a photo on my chest. I looked at it, and my soul died. It wasn't a spider. It was my girlfriend, Sarah. She had come over to surprise me. She used the spare key to check on me. The police think she had dropped the TV remote under the coffee table. She was on her hands and knees, crawling on the floor, trying to find it quietly so she wouldn't wake me up. The black liquid wasn't alien slime. It was blood. In the dark, red looks black. I'm in a cell now. The drugs are out of my system, but I can't sleep. Because every time I close my eyes, I don't see Sarah. I see the Spider Woman, and I know she's waiting for me to turn off the lights.
The Cloud Link. I bought a used smart home hub from a pawn shop to save 20 bucks. It was the biggest mistake of my life, because when I plugged it in, it didn't just connect to the internet. It connected to a live camera feed that had been watching me sleep for months. It was winter break, and the apartment complex was a concrete ghost town. Everyone had gone home, leaving me alone in the building. I needed a backup drive for my design projects, so I bought a dusty, all-in-one hub from a shady shop downtown. I plugged it into my laptop, expecting to reformat it. But when the drive mounted, it wasn't empty. There was a single hidden folder buried deep in the system files. It was titled in all caps, Project Observe. My stomach dropped. I should have unplugged it right there. But curiosity is a curse. I opened the folder. It contained hundreds of audio files. No names, just dates. I scrolled to the bottom. The most recent file was dated today. I put my headphones on and clicked play. The sound was faint at first. A wet, rhythmic noise. Heavy breathing. The soft rustle of fabric. Then a cough. It was a recording of someone sleeping. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. I realized the audio wasn't from the previous owner. The drive was syncing to a cloud account. It was downloading new files right now. Then, a video file appeared in the folder. It wasn't an MP4. It was a live stream link. I clicked it. A window opened on my laptop screen. The feed was grainy, black and white night vision. It showed a messy living room. A desk. A person sitting in a chair, wearing headphones, staring at a laptop. It took my brain a full 5 seconds to process the image. I wasn't watching a recording. I was watching myself. I spun around in my chair, heart hammering against my ribs, scanning the room. The camera wasn't coming from the device on my desk. It was high up, in the corner of the ceiling. There, barely visible, taped over the fire sprinkler sensor, was a tiny, pinhole lens. I looked back at the screen. In the video feed, I watched myself spin around in panic. But then, a text chat box popped up over the video stream. The cursor blinked. Then the words appeared, typing out slowly, letter by letter. "You're watching the wrong channel, Dave." My stomach bottomed out. "My name is Dave." Before I could scream, the power in my apartment cut out. The room plunged into total darkness. The only light came from the blue ring of the smart hub on my desk. Then, the device's AI voice spoke into the silence. It was loud, distorted, and cheerful. "Front door, open." I didn't think. I grabbed my keys and sprinted to the bathroom. I locked the door, backed into the shower stall, and pulled the curtain, clutching a bottle of shampoo like a weapon. I held my breath, listening. Thump, thump, thump. Heavy boots on hardwood floors. They didn't rush. They moved with a slow, heavy confidence. They walked right past the kitchen and stopped directly outside the bathroom door. I saw the shadow of feet under the crack. I waited for the kick. I waited for the door to splinter. The handle jiggled. Once, twice. Then, silence. I stayed in that shower for 3 hours. When the sun finally came up, I worked up the courage to open the door. The apartment was empty. The front door was wide open. But as I stepped out of the bathroom, I stepped on something. A piece of paper had been slid under the door while I was hiding. It was a small, thermal printout, like a receipt. It was a grainy photo of me, curled up in my bed, fast asleep. The timestamp in the corner was 3 a.m. that morning. Whoever was watching me hadn't just hacked my computer. They had a key, and they had been coming into my room while I slept for a long, long time.